Just plugging in my headphones, yeah. Oh yeah. Let's see if this works good. Yeah. Hey, kitty. Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to my first painting workshop. We're going to be talking about textures today. If you don't know who I am Kezia Carter of Kezia Carter Studios.com. And today I am giving a painting workshop. It's really just going to be more of a paint with me since this is my first one. I'm trying to see how it goes. And I'm going to talk about textures. Now, the whole thing of what I'm about is I offer a, let me start it over again. I offer a form of like art therapy to help you get over depression. So creating an art journal would be the first step in painting your emotions, just getting stuff out of you so that you don't feel, so that you're not the only one feeling it. I don't know. I still need to work on figuring that out. So welcome. I think these are going to turn into weekly workshops, and then you can watch the replay for a week, and then I'll archive them on my website. And you can sign up on my newsletter list on my website, KeziaCarterStudio.com, to access the whole archive. Once I'll add a video for every week. So I'm going to scoot the camera over a little bit so that you can see what I got going on. It's kind of ghetto rigged, but that's how I roll. That's how I gotta roll. So this is my little easel that I set up for you guys, and yay! I was trying to get the Google Chat to work, and I searched up how to enable it, and I got confused about what the instructions said of how to enable it. So I was really hoping that you guys could chat. So if you guys want to start, if you can, I'm going to say, hey, chat. Hey, chatty chat. Maybe you can see that, and so you can chat with me if you have questions while I'm going, because that would be awesome. Otherwise, I'm just talking to myself. So here we go. I have prepared a series of three. We're talking about textures, so I've prepared three basic textures that you can start with on your painting. And I am using an art journal. Let me show you what kind of art journal this is. It's really just a mixed media sketchbook. I got it at Michael's. You can probably get it at another like Hobby Lobby or other craft stores. It's the Canson brand, mixed media, 11 by 14 inch sketchbook. And I'm just going to a new page. I like to do scribble. I like to do like several layers. I know that Bernice, you're probably watching. She said that she likes to do paint in layers. And other projects that I have, I'll have like some excess paint, and so I'll just pick a page and just put the excess paint on one of my art journal pages. And that helps create layers, and I don't waste the paint. So, what was I saying? Art journaling. I've got three types of textures for you to try that I'm going to demo for you today. And I think I've got a bonus of I'm going to show you what I'm working on one of my canvas paintings that I'm working on. That ties right into this. So if you're just joining in, I'm Kezia of KeziaCarterStudio.com. I help people with depression or people who feel like really crap and shitty, get their emotions out of them through painting. So it's kind of like an art therapy. And today I'm showing you like the first steps of how I start my painting process, or the therapeutic painting process, which is creating an art journal. Today I'm working with, this is a thing of water that Containers, people like to get all like fancy of like their paint containers. You don't need to be fancy. This is a milk container that I cut the top off of. These are yogurt containers. They're actually really perfect because they have a lid. And so I've been collecting those. That's what holds my paint in. Like if I have excess paint so I don't waste it, I just put the lid on and the water won't evaporate. But you do have to be careful because the water won't evaporate, it will mold if you keep it there for too long. A crappy brush, 1.5 inch, you can get it in the paint section at Walmart for like 70 cents maybe, 50 cents. I'm going to show you a technique that's really cool to use Elmer's glue with. That's really awesome. And this Elmer's glue is like $1.50 for that kind of size. This is glitter glue. Craft section of Walmart, 88 cents. This is very magical. I'm also going to be using a hair dryer. So about a hair dryer that has to do with the technique I'm going to show you with the glue. Some sandpaper. I'll tell you about the sandpaper later. But this refers to the bonus at the end. Stay at the end so you can see what I'm gonna show you what I'm working on, my canvas that I'm working on. So because I base my painting techniques around depression and feelings of blandness and getting emotions out of you. The whole point is to focus on a feeling that you want to get rid of. So I'm going to do an example. I don't think the chat is working. Otherwise, I would ask you guys if you were feeling something today that you really don't want to feel anymore, like a crappy feeling, anxiety, depression, you just feel bad and feel yucky, I would ask you, but I don't think the chat is working. I have to figure that out for next week. So I'm going to give you an example of what I am working on. And I like making these little affirmations, these writing on this an index card that I say, I want to be happy. So I'm focusing on the emotion of being happy. I'm just gonna, I didn't really know how to do this, so I'm just gonna go straight into how to do this workshop. We're just gonna learn as we go. And the space is kind of tight, so I'm not sure where to put things. All right, number one, texture, types of paper. And the types of paper that I've been using recently that I have abundance of is newspaper. And it's perfect. It's perfect for gluing on. And I'm just going to talk while I paint this on here. And if you have any paper nearby, go get it. Go get it. To glue them on, I'm going to use, this is one of my favorite things to paint with is coffee. I just take some excess, I don't know if you can see it. I don't want to spill it. Anyway, there's coffee in there. The excess coffee grounds, I just let it drip into this and I just kind of collect it. It makes awesome, it's a little less than watercolor. It's very transparent, and you can make it darker. You just have to, I think you just have to, oh, and you know what? This is growing mold. Yeah, this is old. Yeah, this needs to be used. Probably just needs to be cleaned too. So using coffee, it's very transparent, like I said, but if you like layer it on like you would watercolors, if you work with it like you would watercolor, it works pretty well. So to glue these strips, I just tear strips off, and you know you can do more like tearing out specific words and things. that would work too. But as far as texture layers, I work, this is how most of my things work. I have a blank paper or canvas, and then I have strips of paper, strips of whatever texture, and I glue the texture on whatever all the texture that I want, and I just glue it on to the paper. And then when that dries, that's when I start to paint. And then I do layers and layers of paint. Some of the layers of paint are with glue. And I just can't wait to show. I'm going to show you what I'm working on because I'm going to reference to this. This is a painting that's about halfway done. And it does have layers of, I started with newspaper. The newspaper dried, and then this is dirt from the garden that I just crushed up and then poured on, and then poured glue and paint over it. And there's probably about 5 or 6 layers of paint on top of it right now. But the next step is to sand, which that's the surprise that I'm going to show you at the end of how awesome it looks when you sand the paint layers away, and then the textures come out. Okay, so I'm totally getting distracted. We're gluing on these papers. So yes, I'm going to add some glue to this. And I like adding a little water to my glue, even if it's just putting on, don't worry about putting paint in the glue to make it look pretty because it's just going to get covered up. I have experimented with that before in the past, and coloring the paint for the textured layers, and the textured layers, they're on the bottom layer. You're never going to be able to see that. So right now, and because I'm just realizing this, there was a lot of water in this, I will have to add more glue, a lot more glue. But you just mix it around. Well, the viewers are like going in and out. 1 viewer, 0 viewers, 3 viewers. I really wish that I could get the chat working. I'm going to get the chat working for next week. And I'm going to organize this so that I'm more cohesive. I'm going to add just a little bit more glue. So different types of papers that you can use that I have used that I know that's really successful is rice paper. Rice paper has such an awesome quality to it. It's thinner than newspaper. It's very delicate and it layers fantastically. Layering newspaper works. It gets the job done, but I don't know. Newspaper works okay. I do like the newspaper that, when you can tear out little words and things that mean things to you, and at least it's a warm day. So this now works as like a paste, a thin glue paste, and I'm going to cover the bottom layer and the top layer of these newspaper strips with the glue paste, glue coffee paste. And I usually don't do this with it vertically. It's usually laying down. So the whole point of doing art journaling, it's just, to me, it's very therapeutic to just do this by yourself. It's a self activity that it acts as a meditation, really. And you can put music on. A lot of artists I know like to work with music in the background, or in the headphones. You can just zone out and, you know, create a space of no judgment, which I think is important when you're dealing with trying to get aggression out or other types of feelings out of you. Oops. And doing this near a window where all the paper is going to be blowing all over the place. But anyway, I tend to keep talking while I'm working because I'm used to working in silence. I did go through that phase of working in working with noise, like with music in my ears, and you know, sometimes I do need that. But most of the time, I just work alone with silence. I will say though, working in a space with other artists who are working on their own thing, there's an energy there that, like an unspoken energy. If you have access to that kind of a space, like if you have access to a university, I would definitely encourage you, and you feel comfortable, I would definitely encourage you to work in that space with other creative juices flowing in the atmosphere. So this mixture is actually working pretty good. This coffee with the glue. Okay. And you know, I'm just randomly, arbitrarily tearing these pieces and layering them over. There's no, I'm not trying to make a shape. That's another thing. A lot of people, when they paint or draw or do something artistic, they think they have to make a shape or a face, which is fine. But the I think that's where a lot of self-judgment comes in. And especially when you're just starting out, you need as little self-judgment. Like, create a space where as little self-judgment can be created, can, or has room to develop, because that can be easily overpowering. And I mean, this still happens to me when I paint. I've been working on, I'm collaborating with my sister, who's a photographer, Charlotte, working with her friend on creating I think I'm out of paper, working on a children's book. I'm doing some simple illustrations for her of this children's book, and I was doing some of those sketches last night, and I caught myself, like, I did 3 or 4 pages of these sketches of this, the book was about a turtle, and I caught myself beating myself up like, oh, this sucks. I just kept turning the page and trying again, and this turtle sucks, you know, this is not going to be anything that she's going to want. And I'm thinking, well, first of all, I'm doing this for free, because so anything that I produce, she's just going to have to take it because it's free artwork. But the other part of me is saying, you know what? Calm down. Take a break. So I took a break. I set the sketchbook aside, and I slept on it. And I gave myself overnight to think about it. And then this morning, I went to look at it. I was just glancing at it. I set it on the table in my room, and I glanced at it and again, and I thought, you know what? This actually isn't going to turn out as bad as I thought it was. And it's not. And so I thought, you know what? These illustrations do not define me as a person. They do not define me as an artist. I know what I potentially can create at my best times, and I obviously know what I can create at my worst times. But just because this illustration it doesn't look good. I think I'm just rambling on now. Just because it didn't look good to me while I was doing it, like I was in the thick of it. I was in my own little world, and I was so concentrated on it. I needed room to step back, and that's like, and that's all what in the art world. That's what critiquing is for, and that's what I guess for in any artistic venture, there's, I mean, like if you write a play or if you have a movie, there's critics who are going to tell you what they think about it. And not that you need to pay attention to what everyone says, but there is value from another person's perspective who has the ability to step back and not be of your world to tell you, you know, to give you feedback. So anyway, I was doing that myself, and I need to learn how to do that. I need to do that more often, of learning to step back from my work, allow myself to sleep on it, and then come back to the work and reevaluate. So I'm just, to help this dry, I'm using a hair dryer. And it's going to be loud for a second. And it's a warm day to begin with, so things are kind of drying anyway, but they're drying pretty quickly. But I'm just going to get this a little dry so that I can keep working over it. And I only did it for half of the page, so I had the other half of the page that was completely dry to show you something else. But the other types of paper, so I'm talking about my number one suggestion for textures that you can lay down on your painting. Which my first suggestion is paper. I'm using newspaper. You can also use rice paper. You can also use sandpaper. You can glue down pieces of sandpaper. I will tell you though, there are lots of different kinds of sandpaper. If you're laying it down as a texture, get the sandpaper with the paper back, a paper backing, so that you are able to glue it and it will stay better. The type of sandpaper that I get is fabric backed, and I get fabric backed for a reason, because I use it to sand my paintings. The painting I showed you earlier, here I'll show you. The types of paintings that I do for my affirmation portraits, this one's about a fourth of the way finished. There's only about 5 or 6 painted layers of paint on this, but once I get a few more layers of paint, I'm gonna use sandpaper to sand away the top layers, and the under textures and the paint will come through. I'm going to show you that later of how I sand, but to do that I have to get the paint wet again. I have to wet the surface, and wetting the surface means that you have to get sandpaper that's a fabric backed, because if you use sandpaper that's paper backed, the sandpaper will disintegrate, and you won't even get one use out of it. I've tried. But the type of sandpaper that's fabric backed is the kind of sandpaper they use on sanding belts. So they'll come in a tube, or like they'll come in a big long strip like this, fabric backed. And I get the grittiest kind because I like some bite. I like some bite to my sandpaper. But this is Gator Grit 40. I think the grit is 40. That's what I use. But again, that's for sanding my newspaper. If you want to use sandpaper as a texture, get the fabric back. Yes. Okay, so that's enough about sandpaper. And this is almost kind of dry. And again, if you missed it, I mixed glue with a little coffee. Some extra coffee that I had sitting around. Okay, that's dry enough. So moving on to tip number 2 of texture. Use earth as a texture. Like I said before, right now I'm working with dirt. These little bumpy thingies, there we go. That's dirt that I got from the garden. It was like, I don't know, 1/8 of a cup worth of dirt, and then I crushed it up a little bit with the end of this paintbrush in a cup. I crushed it up and I poured it on to the canvas, and then I put layers of glue and paint, a mixture of glue plus paint over and over it so that it would stick real well. Oh, yeah. So other types of earth you can do. I didn't bring any earth with me, but you can also use, I've used in the past, plaster. Plaster of Paris, and those come in like big bags. I think plaster of Paris you can get at craft stores. I prefer using joint compound, which is something you can get at a hardware store, and those come in giant. You might be able to get like a small-ish, maybe a 10-pound bag. The bags tend to be kind of big because they're for drywall. But mixing it's water-based. So you mix it with a little water, add a little paint and a little glue. It makes really awesome texture. That's what my larger pieces that I do with these that I made previously that are on my website. I used joint compound and I mixed it with paint and glue for paint layers and texture layers. So plaster is also awesome. Sand is really cool. I mentioned sandpaper, or you can use loose sand. Makes awesome texture. It's very the only thing with sand is it is very low relief. So if you're looking for something, and same thing with paper can be a low relief too. If you're looking something for a little more a deeper relief. Another thing that I worked with is tree bark. I did a giant 18, well, it wasn't too giant, I guess, 18 by 24 painting in my current collection on my website. I'm just going to start painting with this glitter glue while I'm talking because I love it so much. I made an entire painting with a piece of a tree bark that I found in my mom's yard that had fallen off of the tree, and I thought it was so awesome. I'm just going to use my fingers to spread this glitter glue. The tree bark was so awesome, I wanted to turn it into a painting, kind of immortalize it, I guess. But tree bark is, if you need something more, a higher relief, tree bark is great. It definitely can get heavy. So peeling away the outer layers and gluing outer layers onto the canvas, and I definitely recommend using a canvas if you're going to work with a tree bark because paper is too delicate. But though that it's a great texture to work with if you're working with anger feelings, if you're trying to get anger issues out, tearing tree bark, tearing something that's tough and that you can really get into the thick of things. Anger is really good for, tree bark's really good for releasing anger. Also, the sanding technique that I'm going to be showing you later is also really good at relieving stress because you really can just grind away. You really kind of have to press hard. Also, depending on the types of glue that you use. So I don't know what I'm doing with this. I'm experimenting, and all of this is just, I want you to experiment. Use your hands. Don't just use a brush, you know. Incorporate all of your senses, you know. Feel it, touch it. I would not recommend tasting it. It's kind of things that can get kind of toxic. Don't taste it. Don't taste your painting. Unless you're working with like food friendly things, like maybe food coloring or frosting or something. Um, all right, so earth. You can also work with leaves. Right now, I have, it's under some books right now. I am pressing a really awesome leaf that I found outside a couple weeks ago that I'm pressing that I think I may use on a later painting. The third and final texture for you today that I have is using a wet medium. Now, wet medium, I currently work with, I pre-prepared this is a mixture. I work with water-based stuff right now. I do work with some oils, but I am a mixed media artist, really, and that uh, can include using oils, mixed media. But one thing that I love doing right now, and that's what I'm working with the paint mixtures that I do to layer on my affirmation portrait and my abstracts, is using a glue, paint, and water mixture. This is probably and I'll turn it up when I'm ready, but I'm gonna lay this down while I paint this on here. And I am using a brush. You don't have to go in straight lines either. I mean, yeah, you can paint it on, but you can also just get some and drip it. Let the paint drip off of the brush. And if you have the space, I'm not in a space where I can just fling paint because I'm not in my studio right now. I'm away from my studio. I'm about 2,000 miles away from my studio. But I'll do just a little bit. You can flick it like that. And you get some really cool movements, organic movements. Another type of brush that's great for flicking is toothbrushes. So if you have old toothbrushes, they splatter. Toothbrushes is great for smaller pieces because the splatter is really, really small. But if you want like a bunch of really small splatters, mix more water than paint onto a toothbrush, and then use your thumb to splatter it. That's really good. I don't have an extra toothbrush with me, so I just have this. So I'm just going to work with splattering and painting. Another as well, composition. I think I'll talk about next week. Composition, but something that I learned in art school several years ago from one of my teachers was always covering the background of whatever you're doing, especially if the background that you're working with is white, like white paper. It's like the equivalent to a writer of writing in a writing in a notebook. I lost my train of thought. Okay, like people who sketch on paper that's lined. Lined paper is for writers. Blank paper are for artists. But I forgot where I was going with that. Cover your background. That's all I have to say. Because yeah, a white background is fine. A white background, it's just a little bland, and you can get more creative than that. I'm playing around with just some stippling. Another reason why getting crappy brushes is really awesome is that you don't worry about destroying them. You don't worry about, oh, like I don't want to, do this with my brush. Like you don't worry about being too careful with it because it's like a 50-cent brush. And yeah, I'm not saying like completely destroy the environment. I'm not saying destroy the environment by that, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. All right, I'll show you what I got. Yeah. Also, dripping is also really nice too. And I've seen a lot of people that they do dripping. Something that makes that would, you know, something different if you want it, if you like that dripping effect. Keeping in mind the orientation, like this is the orientation that mine is going to have. And so making it drip up instead of dripping down. Because everyone expects drips to drip down because of gravity, but they don't expect drips to drip up. So I like doing that. Okay, this is my third and final one. So my little experiment that I'm gonna show you. So I need to use the rest of the glue that's in here, glue paint, and then this is where the hair dryer really comes in, because adding glue, you want a thick glue paint ratio. This was probably, I'd say 70% glue, 20% water, 10% paint, or probably 25% water, 5% paint, but 70% glue, because once you add heat to it, which that's what the hair dryer is going to do, it's going to add heat to it. All right, I'm going to make this drip a little more. Drip up. Now this is going to look like, it's going to look like nothing, but once it dries, then we can add more layers onto it, which is going to be awesome. So I'm going to dry this and put the hair dryer setting on hot. If it has hotness setting. Now what this is doing to the glue is adding intense and abrupt heat onto the paint and to the glue. The water evaporates faster than the glue can dry, so the glue will separate from itself and you'll get a crackling effect. It's really kind of awesome. It usually takes a while though, especially with thicker painted areas. So I'm just going to keep kind of moving this around to thin the paint out a little bit so it'll dry a little faster. I've also done this technique with plaster. My plaster mixtures, plaster with a little paint and a little glue. And then I put the plaster down onto the canvas, and then I put a hair dryer on it for like 20 or 30 minutes, and the water in it evaporated faster than the plaster. You're just forcing it to dry faster, and it'll separate from itself. But adding plaster to glue will definitely enhance the crackling effect if you really like that look. So what else do I have to share? So after, maybe I'll just work on this little, I'll dry this little corner. Hopefully it'll dry a little faster so you can see it. So while this is going, I wanted to share a little story about how I came to paint in this type of style. When I was in high school, I discovered lots of feelings of intense feelings, really, of depression, and it came really abruptly. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was happening to me. I just weeks and weeks and months. It just it takes over your life. And something that I've noticed, that I've finally realized while I was talking to my friend, people who have depression are people who, when you feel really bad, you don't notice, you're not going to focus on, or you don't realize, oh, I have depression. Like, you know what I mean? You're not going to realize that to put, to label what you're feeling, as in, like it's a disease. You're not going to be able to recognize that because you're in this state of thoughts and feelings completely consuming you. You just don't know how to deal with the basic life, pretty much. Your thoughts and feelings consume your energy, and um, that so you end up struggling with just basic life, just dealing with life. So I gradually thought of ways. I inadvertently started creating art. I didn't, again, I didn't label myself as an artist. I didn't say, oh, I'm this great person, I do this great art. And when I got to college, I had this arbitrary goal of interior design, but I didn't want to start at university. I started at a community college, and to start a community college to prepare me for interior design, it was getting an associate in arts. So I started taking drawing classes and painting and sculpture and ceramics, and I found that I really took to those things, and they were very therapeutic for me. So when it came around time to make my artist statement and like my resume sort of a thing, describing what art means to me and why I'm an artist, I got real with myself and I said, you know what? Art really is just, it makes me feel better. And I use it as a form of therapy. And so that was my artist statement. And ever since then, I've gotten closer and closer and a clearer understanding of why I really create art. And that's to help me feel better. This depression that I felt since high school, I will probably always feel it. I go in and out of whatever you want to call them, depression lulls, I guess. I've been going in and out of them for 10 to 15 years, and I kind of equate it as thriving with cancer. You know, I'm thriving with depression. It's always going to be in my life. So if it's always going to be in my life and I want to continue living, then I have to have an outlet for me to deal with all of the feelings that bombard me. So that's why I don't know if this is really gonna, I think my experiment is gonna bomb on me. The crackling isn't really happening, but either I'm just not, yeah, it's kind of hot. This hairdryer actually isn't that hot. Maybe I'll just focus on an area. This may totally bomb, but I know it works, and I'll figure out the ratio if it works, and I'll share it with you guys later. So where was I? Okay, so having a desire to feel better, yes, definitely. The road to recovery, the road to feeling better, no matter if you're going through depression or if you're just going through a bad day, having a desire to feel better is going to fuel your action. And the action is what is going to get you out of feeling shitty. So my action, when you get to that point, is releasing the Kraken. I'd like to say, like I'm Zeus. Release the Kraken, or get up off of that thing and paint until you feel better. Get a journal, get a book, and start painting something until you feel better. A lot of people, a lot of people, they'll start to paint, but I know that it's frustrating for a lot of people to, they just don't know what I'm here for. I am here to teach you how to start, what to start with, types, techniques that you can use to go to the next level of creativity, to just get the emotion out of you onto paper, and so that you can move on with your life. The end. That's me. All right, so I don't think this is hot enough. It's kind of an old hair dryer, so the air wasn't very warm. This is what it did start to kind of, not really. It's still super wet. Like I said before, I could stand here for 30 minutes with a hair dryer on it to get it to dry faster. But I'm gonna, like I promised you at the beginning, we're gonna take a little field trip to the kitchen, and I'm gonna show you how I sand this. So here we go. We're taking it, and again, I'm using a fabric-backed piece. This is like maybe an inch thick. You don't need a lot. This is going to last forever. Sandpaper, canvas, paint. Here we go. I'm taking you to the kitchen, and I really hope that the connection stays okay, because it's a little, the internet connection isn't that great in this house. So here we are going to the kitchen to do some sanding. Hey. This is really fun of starting to do this. This is my new, this is like a first thing for me, but I know it's just going to get even better. It's going to get even better, my workshops, the more I do this. It's going to be so fun. All right, so we're turning the faucet on, low setting. You don't need a lot. Now, warm water will help to I'm going to turn this light on. Warm water is going to help the paint get a little more wet, or it's going to help, it's going to heighten the sanding process. I'm using just room temperature water. This is about room temperature, or a little bit warmer than room temperature. I'm only going to do a little corner. You get it wet, and you'll start to notice that the paint will start to get slippery. And that is the time. See, it's super, I don't know if you can see scratch marks. Once the paint starts to get a little slippery, you got to be careful, because you can kind of rub that away. Depending on the type of glue that you use and how thick of the, see, you can see the under layers. There's the little bright green or darker green popping through. It depends on the piece. Sometimes you got to be more careful when you're sanding. I'm giving about moderate pressure. It's not as, I'm not pressing as hard as I usually would. This is a little soft, but my water is a little warm. So like I said before, these little clumps, they're clumps of dirt that I sealed on with glue. And then I've done about 4 or 5 layers of paint and glue mixtured together. One thing I have noticed from doing dozens of these types of paintings is once you get the paint, once you re-wet the paint, it will change the color of it permanently. This is another way that you can get a crackling effect. If you put more glue to water ratio in the paint mixture, and then you let it dry, it will also crackle. I haven't perfected this though, so giving you a formula, I'm not confident enough to give you a formula right now, but I know lots of people like that crackling effect. See, you can start to see Also, when you start to sand and these layers will dry back again, you'll also get a crackling effect. I did a painting experimenting with this, and lots and lots of thin, very thin layers of paint and glue, and then you let it dry. But I'm talking like dozens of layers on top of dozens of layers of paint or glue. It does make a crackle, and it mimics the look of oil, like how oil paintings from Renaissance type crackling. So I've never used raw dirt before as a texture. I'm being a little careful around the little nuggets, because if you rub, because I know that if you rub the nugget, it's just gonna, the giant nuggets, they're just gonna fall apart. So these layers, where there's a little bump here of where I had newspaper, I'm scrubbing just a little bit harder. And notice I am alternating sanding a little bit, and then washing off the excess. I want to be careful not to go too far. This is probably an advanced technique that I'm going to create a whole workshop series on how to create your own affirmation portrait. Yeah. I hope that you can see the detail there. The camera isn't super, but these little dark spots are showing through. That's the dirt, and we got some paint, under layers of paint. That's good. All right. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much for coming to the webinar, my texture webinar, my first one. It's only going to get better from here. These are going to be weekly installments of how to, oh my goodness, how to start painting to release your feelings. And next week is going to be even better. Kezia Carter signing off, sharing or telling you to get up off of that thing and paint until you feel better, because it is a great release. It is a great form of therapy, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week. If you guys have a question of something that you'd like me to cover next week, tweet me. Send me a tweet. I am Kezia C Studio, at Kezia C Studio on Twitter, or you can send me a Facebook message, but it's funner to get tweets, and I'll definitely get those. So post your question at Kezia C Studio on Twitter. Tell me what you want to hear me talk about for next week's painting to release emotions and to help you feel better. I will see you next week. Bye!